The rain stung my face like needles. But I didn't care. I was running from everything. From the shouts echoing in my head. From the home that never felt like one. My sneakers slapped against the wet pavement of this nowhere street in Portland, Oregon. Each step a scream I couldn't voice. I was 17, and the world had just told me I wasn't enough, not for my family. Not for the God they prayed to. Not for anyone. I ducked into an alley, my chest heaving, my hoodie soaked through. The city's pulse thrum distant car horns. The low hum of neon signs, but here, it was just me and the shadows. I slid down against a brick wall, knees to my chest, trying to breathe through the ache that wasn't just from running. That's when I saw him, Eli, leaning against a dumpster, his leather jacket glistening with rain, a cigarette glowing faintly between his fingers. He didn't look like a savior. Hell, he looked like trouble, sharp jaw, messy dark hair, eyes that seemed to carry their own storm. But when he glanced my way, something in his gaze pinned me in place. "You look like you're running from the devil himself," he said, voice low, almost swallowed by the rain. I wiped my face, hoping he couldn't tell I'd been crying. "Maybe I am," I muttered, my voice cracking. He flicked the cigarette away, the ember hissing as it hit a puddle. "Well, the devil's a coward. He doesn't chase you into alleys like this." He stepped closer, crouching so we were eye level, and I swear I felt the air shift. "Name's Eli. You got one." "Sam," I said, barely a whisper. I didn't know why I told him. Maybe because he was the first person in hours who didn't look at me like I was broken. Eli tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he didn't mind solving. "Sam, you're shaking. Come on. I know a place." He stood, offering a hand. I stared at it, calloused and steady, and something in mesomething desperate reached out. He led me through the maze of Portland's back streets to a tiny diner. The kind with cracked vinyl seats and coffee that tasted like regret. We sat in a booth by the window, rain streaking the glass, and he ordered us fries and hot chocolate without asking. "You don't owe me anything," he said when I tried to protest. "Just eat. You look like you need it." I didn't know how to tell him I needed more than food. I needed someone to see me, ally, see me, not turn away. My parents had found the letter I'd written to a boy at school. A stupid, hopeful thing I never meant to send. They called it sin. Called me a sin. And the fight that followed left me with a busted lip and a heart in pieces. I'd been wandering since, trying to outrun the shame they'd carved into me. Eli didn't ask questions at first. He just sat there, stealing my fries, telling me about the time he got kicked out of a dive bar for singing too loudly. His voice was warm, like he was offering me a blanket made of words. "You ever been to the coast?" he asked suddenly. "Cannon Beach. Stars look like they're spilling right into the ocean." I shook my head, staring at the steam rising from my mug. Never had a reason to go. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Maybe you do now." I looked up, and his eyes were steady, like he meant it, like I was someone worth taking somewhere. My throat tightened, and I ducked my head, pretending to focus on the fries. But inside, something cracked opina tiny, dangerous thing called hope. Over the next hour, Eli talked, and I listened. He was 19, a runaway like me, living in a squat with a couple of other kids who'd been spit out by the world. He didn't say why he'd left home, but the way his jaw tightened when he mentioned his dad told me enough. We were different, him and me, but the weight we carried felt the same. The diner's clock ticked past midnight, and the waitress started giving us looks. "Come on," Eli said, tossing a few crumpled bills on the table. "You can crash with me tonight. No strings, Sam. Just a place to breathe." I hesitated. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not after everything. But his hand brushed mine as he stood. Accidental and fleeting. And it was the first time in years I didn't flinch at a touch. I followed him back into the rain. Into the unknown. Because for the first time in forever, I didn't feel alone. We walked to a rundown warehouse on the edge of the city. Its windows boarded up. Graffiti bleeding down the walls. Inside, it was a patchwork of blankets, string lights, and mismatched furniture, a home built by people who'd been told they didn't belong anywhere else. Eli introduced me to Luna, a trans girl with a quick laugh and a knack for fixing things. And Marcus, a quiet guy who sketched in the margins of old books. They didn't pry, just handed me a blanket and pointed to a couch. I lay there that night, listening to the rain on the roof. Eli's soft breathing from a mattress nearby. My mind raced. Could I stay here? Could I trust this? But exhaustion pulled me under. And for the first time in months, I slept without nightmares. The next morning, sunlight filtered through a cracked window, and Eli was already up, making coffee on a camping stove. "You're still here," he said, grinning. "Good. I was worried you'd bolt." I thought about it, I admitted, sitting up. "Why'd you help me, Eli? You don't even know me." He handed me a mug, his fingers brushing mine again. Deliberate this time. "Because I've been where you are. And someone helped me once. Figured I'd pass it on." I sipped the coffee. Bitter and too hot. But it warmed the hollow in my chest. I didn't know what this was: friendship, kindness, something more, but for the first time, I wanted to find out. Days turned into weeks, and the warehouse became my refuge. It wasn't much leaky pipes, creaky floors, but it was more home than I'd ever had. Eli, Luna, and Marcus were a family of misfits, each carrying scars they didn't talk about but wore in their eyes. I started helping out, scavenging thrift stores for clothes, fixing broken chairs with Luna. Eli taught me how to hotwire a car, though he swore he only did it for emergencies. "You never know when you need to run," he said, half joking, but his eyes were serious. Eli was a paradox tough as nails, with a laugh that could light up the darkest corners of that warehouse. He'd tease me mercilessly, calling me city boy because I didn't know how to roll a cigarette. But he'd also sit with me on the roof at night, pointing out constellations he'd named himself. "That one's the Broken Crown," he said one night, tracing a jagged line of stars. "For the kings and queens the world tried to break." I wanted to ask about his past, about the shadows that flickered across his face when he thought no one was looking. But I didn't. I was too busy guarding my own. Still, I felt a pull between us, like a current I couldn't name. When he'd pass me a tool or bump my shoulder, my skin would burn, and I'd catch him watching me, his gaze lingering a second too long. One evening, Luna dragged us to a punk show in a basement club, the kind where the walls vibrated and the air smelled of sweat and cheap beer. Eli was in his element, shouting lyrics, his arms slung around my shoulders like it was the most natural thing in the world. I froze, overwhelmed by the warmth of him, the press of bodies, the music pounding in my chest. When the band slowed down, playing something raw and aching, Eli leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. "You okay, Sam?" I nodded, but my heart was racing for reasons that had nothing to do with the crowd. "Yeah," I said, voice shaky. "Just a lot." He didn't pull away. Instead, he tightened his arm around me, grounding me. "Stay with me," he said, and I wasn't sure if he meant for the night or forever. Back at the warehouse, we sat on the roof again, sharing a stolen bottle of wine. The city sprawled below us, a glittering mess of light and shadow. "You ever think about leaving?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Eli took a swig, his throat bobbing. "Every day? But then I'd miss this." He gestured at the skyline. "At us. What about you? You planning to run again?" I looked at him, his profile sharp against the night, and something in me broke free. "Not if you're here," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. He turned, his eyes searching mine, and for a moment, the world held its breath. Then he smiled, soft and unguarded. "Good. Because I'm not going anywhere." The next day, trouble found us. Marcus came back from a food run, his face pale, his hands shaking. Cops were sniffing around downtown. He said, asking about a runaway. Said he's 17. Brown hair. Green eyes. My stomach dropped. That was me. My parents must have reported me missing, though I doubted it was out of love. More likely, they wanted to drag me back to their version of salvation. Eli's jaw tightened. "They won't find you here," he said, his voice fierce. "We've got your back." But fear gnawed at me. I'd brought this danger to them, to this fragile home we'd built. That night, I couldn't sleep, the weight of it crushing me. I slipped out to the roof, hoping the stars would quiet my mind. Eli found me there, his footsteps soft on the gravel. "You're spiraling," he said, sitting beside me. I hugged my knees, staring at the city lights. What if they find me? What if I ruin everything? He reached for my hand, his grip firm. "You're not ruining anything. You're part of this now. Part of us." His words hit me like a wave, and I turned to him, my eyes burning. "Why do you care, Eli? Why me?" He looked at me, his expression raw, unguarded. "Because you're the first person who makes me feel like I'm not just surviving." My breath caught, and before I could think, I leaned in, my lips brushing his. It was tentative, terrifying, but he kissed me back, slow and certain, like he'd been waiting for this as long as I had. When we pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine, and I felt tears on my cheeks, not mine, but his. "I'm okay. Don't cry," he whispered, his voice breaking. But I was crying, because it was the first time I felt loved. That kiss changed everything. It was a spark in the dark, a promise I didn't know I could believe in. But the world didn't stop turning, and danger was closer than we thought. The next morning, Luna burst into the warehouse, her eyes wide with panic. "Sam, you gotta lay low. Cops hit the market today. Showing your picture." My heart sank. I'd been naive to think I could outrun my past. Eli grabbed my arm, pulling me to a corner. "We'll figure this out," he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "You're not going back." Luna and Marcus devised a plan to keep me out of sight. Move me to a friend's place in Seattle if things got too hot. But every creak of the warehouse, every siren in the distance, made me jump. Eli stayed close, his presence a tether keeping me from falling apart. That night, we hid in the attic, a cramped space with a single dusty window. Eli spread a blanket on the floor, and we sat, knees touching, whispering to keep the fear at bay. He told me about his mom, how she'd loved him until his dad's fists drove her away. "I was 15 when I left," he said, his voice hollow. "Haven't seen her since." I told him about my parents, about the church they loved more than me, about the letter that shattered everything. I didn't even send it, I said, my voice cracking. "I just wrote it to feel something." Eli's hand found mine, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "You're not wrong for feeling, Sam. Don't let them tell you that." His words were a lifeline, but guilt gnawed at me. I was putting them all at risk, Eli. Luna. Marcus. "Maybe I should turn myself in," I said, barely audible. "I don't want you guys getting hurt because of me." Eli's grip tightened. "Don't you dare. You're worth fighting for." The next day, we got word that the cops had raided a nearby squat. They were closing in. Luna suggested I dye my hair. And by noon, I was staring at a stranger in a cracked mirror, my brown curls now jet black. Eli grinned, ruffling my hair. "Not bad. City boy. You look like you could start a band." I laughed despite myself, but the tension lingered. That night, Eli took me to the coast, just like he'd promised. We drove in a borrowed van, the road stretching dark and endless before us. Cannon Beach was quiet, the ocean a restless murmur under a sky bursting with stars. We walked along the shore, the cold biting at my fingers, but Eli's hand in mine kept me warm. "You were right," I said, staring at the stars spilling into the sea. "It's beautiful." He pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me. "So are you," he whispered, and my heart stuttered. We kissed again, the waves crashing around us. And for a moment, the world was just us two boys against the universe. But reality crept back. On the drive home, Eli's phone buzzed with a text from Luna. "Cops hit the warehouse. They're looking for Sam." My stomach twisted. They'd found our home, our sanctuary. "We'll find a new place," Eli said, his voice fierce. "We always do." But I saw the strain in his eyes, the weight of keeping us all safe. I wanted to believe him, but doubt was a heavy thing, and it was growing heavier by the day. The raid forced us to scatter. Luna and Marcus went to stay with friends in Eugene, while Eli and I headed to Seattle, crashing with a guy named Jax, a tattooed artist who lived in a loft cluttered with canvases and vinyl records. Jax was kind, but his place felt temporary, like we were borrowing time. Seattle's gray skies mirrored my mood. I missed the warehouse, the late-night talks, The feeling of belonging. Eli tried to keep things light, dragging me to coffee shops and thrift stores. But the fear of being found clung to me like damp clothes. One night, Jax threw a party, and the loft filled with strangers, musicians, poets, people like us who'd built lives on the edges. Eli was across the room, laughing with a girl who kept touching his arm. Jealousy twisted in my gut, sharp and unfamiliar. I slipped onto the fire escape, needing air. Eli found me, his breath visible in the cold. "You disappeared," he said, sitting beside me. "You seemed busy," I muttered, hating how small I sounded. He raised an eyebrow, then laughed softly. "Sam, you idiot. I'm not into her. I'm into you." My face burned, and I looked away, but he cupped my chin, turning me back. "Hey," he said, his voice soft. "I mean it. You're my person." I kissed him then, fierce and desperate, and he kissed me back, his hands tangling in my hair. The city hummed below us, but all I felt was his warmth, his heartbeat, his promise. But promises couldn't stop the world. The next morning, Jax pulled us aside. "Someone's been asking about a kid matching your description, Sam," said. "They're private investigators, not cops. But it's bad news." My blood ran cold. My parents had money enough to hire people to hunt me down. Eli's face hardened. "We need to move again," he said. "Somewhere they won't look." We packed what little we had and caught a bus to Spokane, a city that felt like it was holding its breath. We found a cheap motel, the kind with flickering lights and questionable stains. Eli tried to make it a joke, calling it our honeymoon suite, but I could see the worry in his eyes. That night, lying on the lumpy mattress, I couldn't sleep. Eli's arm was around me, his breathing steady, but my mind raced. What if they never stop looking? I whispered. He stirred, pulling me closer. Then we keep running. Together. But running was wearing us down. The next day, Eli got a call from Lunacy and Marcus were safe. But the cops had found another squat. The net was tightening, and I was the reason. Guilt choked me, and I started to wonder if I was dragging Eli down with me. Spokane was a blur of gray days and restless nights. We kept a low profile, avoiding crowded places. But the tension was eating at us. Eli was still Eli, cracking jokes, stealing kisses when no one was looking, but I could feel him fraying, the weight of our situation pressing down. One evening, we wandered into a used bookstore, the kind with creaky floors and the smell of old paper. I was flipping through a battered copy of Whitman when Eli slid beside me, his shoulder brushing mine. "You ever read this guy?" he asked, tapping the book. "A little," I said. "He's intense." Eli grinned. "Yeah, he loved hard. Like it was the only thing worth doing." I looked at him, my chest tight. "Is it worth it? I mean..." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took my hand, pulling me to a quiet corner. "Sam, I'd run across the world for you. That's how worth it you are." I wanted to believe him, but doubt was a poison. That night, back at the motel, I found a letter slipped under our door. No name, just a typed note. We know where you are. Come home. Samuel. My hands shook as I showed it to Eli. His face darkened, and he crumpled the paper. They're trying to scare you, he said. Don't let them win. But they were winning. The next day, we spotted a man watching us from across the street, his face half hidden by a baseball cap. Eli grabbed my arm, pulling me into an alley. We're leaving. Now. We hopped a bus to Missoula, Montana, the mountains looming like silent guardians. We found a shelter that didn't ask questions, but the fear followed us. I started having nightmares, me parents' voices, Eli's face fading into darkness. I'd wake up gasping, Eli's arms around me, his voice soft. I'm here. Sam. I'm here. But I was breaking. One night, I slipped out while Eli slept, walking the empty streets. I thought about turning myself in, letting him go free. He deserved better than a life on the run, always looking over his shoulder. When I got back, Eli was awake, his eyes wild. Don't do that again, he said, pulling me into a hug. I thought you were gone. I'm sorry, I whispered, clinging to him. I don't want to ruin your life. He pulled back, his hands framing my face. You are my life. Sam, don't you get that? Tears fell, and he wiped them away, his own eyes shining. I'm okay. Don't cry, he whispered. But we were both crying now, holding each other like the world might break us apart. Missoula was our last stand. We couldn't keep running forever, money was low, and the constant fear was a weight neither of us could carry much longer. Eli started talking about Canada, about crossing the border, starting fresh. We could be free, he said one night, his voice full of a hope I wasn't sure I could match. But freedom felt like a dream. The investigators were relentless, leaving notes at shelters, flashing my picture in diners. My parents weren't giving up, and I knew why they wanted to save their reputation. Not me. One day, Eli came back from a job hunt, his face pale. They're close. Sam. Someone recognized you at the gas station. Panic clawed at me. What do we do? He took my hands, his grip steady. We fight. We stay together, no matter what. That night, we made a plan. Luna and Marcus would meet us in Idaho, near the border. If we could make it there, we'd have a chance. But the next morning, everything fell apart. We were packing when the door burst open, and two men in suits stood there, their faces cold. Samuel Carter. One said, holding up a badge. Your parents sent us. It's time to go home. Eli stepped in front of me, his voice low and dangerous. He's not going anywhere. The second man smirked. Step aside, kid. This doesn't concern you. But it did. Eli lunged, shoving the man back, and chaos erupted. I grabbed a lamp, swinging it wildly. But they were stronger, trained. One pinned Eli to the floor, and the other grabbed my arms, twisting them behind my back. I screamed, kicking, but it was no use. Sam, Eli shouted, struggling under the man's weight. Don't give up. They dragged me outside, into a black SUV. I saw Eli's face, bruised and desperate, as the door slammed shut. The last thing I heard was his voice, raw and breaking. "I'll find you, Sam. I swear." The drive was a blur. They took me to a hotel, locked me in a room, and told me my parents were coming. I sat on the bed, numb, the weight of Eli's promise the only thing keeping me from shattering. Hours later, the door opened, and there they were, me parents, dressed in their Sunday best, their faces a mix of relief and disgust. "Samuel," my mother said, her voice tight, "you've caused us so much pain." I wanted to scream, to tell them they were the ones who'd broken me. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I thought of Eli, of his hand in mine, of the stars over Cannon Beach. I wasn't going back to their world. Not now. Not ever. The hotel room felt like a cage. My parents sat across from me, their voices a relentless drone of scripture and shame. "You can be fixed, Samuel," my father said, his hands folded like he was praying for my soul. "We found a program. You'll come home, and we'll make this right." I stared at the floor, my mind racing. A conversion program. I'd heard the stories kids locked away, broken down until they hated themselves. I thought of Eli, his laugh, his touch, and I knew I couldn't let them take that from me. "I'm not going," I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. My mother gasped, but my father's eyes narrowed. "You don't have a choice." But I did. That night, when they thought I was asleep, I pried open the window and climbed out, my heart pounding. The drop to the ground was short but jarring, and I ran, not looking back. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to find Eli. I hitchhiked to Idaho, my heart in my throat every time a car slowed. By some miracle, I made it to the meeting point, a diner on the edge of Coeur d'Alene. Luna and Marcus were there, their faces lighting up when they saw me. "You're insane," Luna said, hugging me tight. "Eli's gonna lose it when he sees you." "Where is he?" I asked, my voice desperate. Marcus hesitated. "He got picked up by the cops after you were taken. They let him go. But he's not good, Sam. He's blaming himself." They took me to a cabin in the woods, a safe house owned by one of Luna's friends. Eli was there, sitting on the porch, his face bruised and his eyes hollow. When he saw me, he stood, frozen, like he couldn't believe I was real. "Sam," he whispered, and then he was running, pulling me into his arms. "I thought I lost you." "I'm here," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm not going anywhere." We held each other, the world fading away. Later, around a fire, Luna and Marcus filled me in. They'd been dodging the investigators, moving from place to place. Eli hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, consumed by the need to find me. "I'm sorry," I said, my hand in his. "I didn't mean to hurt you." He shook his head, his eyes fierce. "You're worth it, Sam. Every second." But the danger wasn't over. The investigators were still out there, and my parents weren't giving up. We needed a plan, a real one, if we were going to make it to Canada. The cabin became our war room. Luna mapped out routes to the border, while Marcus scouted for supplies. Eli and I worked on fake IDs, our hands brushing as we cut and glued. The tension between us a mix of fear and something deeper. One night, as snow dusted the ground, Eli pulled me outside. "If we make it," he said, his breath visible in the cold. "What do you want?" "For us. I mean." I looked at him, his face lit by moonlight, and I saw a future I'd never dared imagine. "I want a home," I said. "With you. Somewhere we don't have to hide." He smiled, pulling me close. "Then that's what we'll build." The next day, we got word investigators had tracked us to Idaho. We had to move. We piled into a van, Luna driving, Marcus navigating, Eli and me in the back, holding hands like it was the only thing keeping us grounded. The border was close, but so were they. We could see headlights in the distance, hear the faint wail of sirens. Luna floored it, the van rattling as we sped through the night. My heart pounded, but Eli's hand in mine was steady, a promise we'd make it. We ditched the van at a rest stop, crossing on foot through a stretch of forest. The cold was brutal, but Eli's arm around me kept me moving. When we reached the other side, a friend of Luna's was waiting, a woman named Claire who ran a safe house for kids like us. "You're safe now," she said, her voice kind. "Welcome to Canada." I collapsed against Eli, tears streaming down my face. He held me, his own eyes wet. "I'm okay. Don't cry," he whispered. But I was crying because it was the first time I felt loved truly. Completely loved. We stayed with Claire, building a new life. It wasn't perfect, there were still scars, still fears, but we had each other. Eli got a job at a garage, and I started community college, studying literature. Whitman's words a reminder of the love we'd fought for. Luna and Marcus visited when they could, their laughter filling the small apartment we called home. One night, under a sky full of stars, Eli took my hand. "We made it, Sam," he said, his voice soft. "We're free." And we were not just from the past, but for each other. For the first time, I believed in a future where love wasn't a sin, but a salvation.